Hi, welcome to OUTthink. I'm Lawrence Akers, clinical hypnotherapist, member of the LGBTQI community, and a passionate advocate for mental health. This week, we're going down a very different road, a somewhat glamorous, fabulous road. We have the wonderful Filla joining us today, and the topic for today's OUTthink is about the psychology of drag. Why do people do drag? What's in it for them? And this extreme between performer versus hiding behind a mask, I guess. Polly, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, hello.
Now, I guess starting off, you've been doing drag for
20 years now. Yeah,
exactly.
Clicking on to 21.
I was trying to...
I was only 18 when I started, so, you know, like... I'm still 18, so, you know.
Time distortion. Obvious starting question. What made you decide to first try drag?
I've just been sort of, you know, playing with different art forms. You know, I've been doing pantomimes and amdram, like after school drama and stuff. I was getting into aerobics. It was the 90s, and really enjoyed sort of dance and movement. Really enjoyed sort of like fringe theatre, street theatre, physical theatre, that sort of thing. And then really enjoyed playing around with, well, I was working as a clown as well, doing children's parties and doing, you know, entertaining people, making people laugh, doing magic. And I loved disco music because, you know, it was the 90s, that was all coming back in. I loved glitzy fabrics, period fashion, any chance to dress up, playing around with hair and makeup and things. And then one day I took myself off to the movies and saw Priscilla, and literally just the penny dropped. It was all of those things all rolled into one. Yeah, I didn't have to learn. I could create a character, but not have to learn a script and dialogue and things. I could, you know, dance around to my favorite disco track and play around with hair and makeup and create a costume. And it was just the best art form vehicle for what I wanted to do, really.
Can you remember the first time you did drag?
I can remember the first time I did drag. It was, what would it be, like 1996. God, 1996. And it was for the first time I went out in drag was for a queer student university party, and I was wearing glasses at the time, didn't have contact lenses, and so you can't wear glasses in drag, it's just not done. So I walked around with no glasses on and was half blind, you know, the whole night, and had a friend who was like, you know, stay with me, like a sort of a guide dog, because I couldn't see people, you know, with all the flashing lights and blurry eyes.
Probably more a guide drag.
Yeah. And then the first show was only a few weeks after that, for a fundraising dance party, and my first song was "Wannabe" by the Spice Girls, which I think kind of set the whole.
Out of interest, how did you play 5 different voices?
Well, there's only 2 of us, and
right.
and no one had heard it. We had it on Kasingle, and no one knew what the Spice Girls were. So that was kind of before everyone figured out there were 5 of them. So we got away with it.
And so, do you remember how you felt on that first night? What kind of reactions you had, and what kind of recollections you had about the experience?
Well, I was always really excited, you know, just like slightly nervous. That's a sort of nervous excitement, like being on a roller coaster. Slightly petrified that I would get read by the other drag queens. Mm-hmm. But in Wellington, because there were so few drag performers, they actually just embraced it, you know. The main thing with drag queens, I think, as long as you're not a C unit, you're pretty good standing, you know. Yeah.
And as long as you don't touch the other girls' songs.
Well, that, you know, there's a bit of that too. Yeah. But the other thing is, you know, it's like, in terms of that, no one really owns a song.
No.
You know, except the person
except
saying
the artist that recorded it in the first
place.
Yes,
it's funny saying, you know, you did my number. It's like, well, anyone can do, yeah. I've actually had a queen come up to me straight after a number and smacked me across the face in front of a full club. and accusing me of doing her song. And it's like, she hasn't done drag for 3 years, and the song was River Deep Mountain High by Celine Dion. So it's a real like
it's pretty much a standard, you know, in the drag toolkit.
Yeah,
it's pretty standard. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, you did my number, and I was just like, I just started laughing, and security threw her out.
It wouldn't be more of a ow. Ah.
Oh no, through that amount of makeup, it's like you couldn't feel anything.
It reminds me back when I used to light drag shows at the Exchange Hotel, and there was one night where one of the lighting cans in the ceiling above the stage fell and landed on Paris's head.
Right.
But her bonnet had so much hairspray in it that it literally just bounced off.
It's like a helmet.
And landed on the ground. And she did almost this kind of, oh, what was that look?
Whereas it would have knocked a normal human being out.
Potentially killed another person.
Yeah.
Don't know if I should be admitting that.
Hi, Paris.
Yeah. So, how different is Polly to Colin?
Some people would say completely different. Some people would say not different at all. I think that, I used to be a really, really camp boy. Like, I would wear suits made out of, like, cow print, or, like, wear, like, flares, and I'd make, like, little matching skirts, sort of wrap skirts to go over the top. It was that 90s thing, you know, like, spray-on Bonds T-shirts and berets and, you know, things, because that's what we're all doing. And then when I started doing drag, it was like this personality split. So Colin is much more T-shirts and jeans and comfy clothes, whereas Polly wears all the bright colours and sequins and lurid frocks and things like that. In terms of personality, I think she's just a much more amplified version of me, like as if my thoughts and speech was through a megaphone, you know. But it's also, you know, you're putting out there what specifically you want people to see. So you're selecting parts of your personality that you're amping up. But it's interesting, you know, in different scenarios, how different parts of the personality can come out. I definitely think, just my opinion, that you know, drugs and alcohol, I'm not going to say they're great or they're bad, but they sort of remove the mask and the barrier. Yeah, and then so if someone's in drag and then they get drunk, and the inhibitions come down, you start to see the true self. So some people can be the life of the party. Some people can be very quiet. Some people can get really bitter and really nasty. Even the nicest person just suddenly has this nasty side. Yeah. You know, that doesn't happen too often, but I feel like, oh, where did that come from? And I believe that's someone's true, like, feelings coming out when there's no mufflers.
Because you mentioned before about drag and creating a character. How many drag performers out there do you think have created a character in itself versus them just dressing up in drag and seeing what aspects of their personality come out?
I think it's probably like 50-50 being something that someone has specifically, you know, chosen to do versus what I call channeling. Yeah. You become like this lightning rod for this other being, and you can't explain it. But, you know, I'd say almost like the, you know, you have like a drag queen like Vala Jean Merman, who, when Vala is American drag queen, when Vala's Jeff, he's this big,
very handsome.
Yeah.
It's disturbingly handsome.
Very sort of guy. Yes. And yet, you know, and he's 6 foot and he's not skinny. No. And yet when he's Vala, it's just, you know, this Southern Belle comes out and the voice is really different. And it's two completely different people.
And in fact, I'll include some links to YouTube for some of Vala's performances for any listeners out there that might want to check out. Vala is great. And Vala also appeared in a film.
Yeah, Girls Will Be Girls.
Girls Will Be Girls, which was quite camp in itself as well.
And so, you know, completely different. Two completely different people. And even if you saw them side by side, you wouldn't even pick it was the same person. You know, and I think in that sort of thing, there have been some conscious decisions made, but there's a lot of unconscious kind of channeling this other person that she just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, I know the feeling. If you look at something like RuPaul's Drag Race, there's certainly a lot of pros and cons to come out of that show.
Yeah.
Pros definitely being that it has really taken the art form of drag and really elevated it to a level which, prior to that show existing, it struggled to get. I think we had, obviously things like Priscilla that helped put it out in the mainstream.
That was that initial thing.
Yeah, but,
with Priscilla and Tu Wong Fu and RuPaul all kind of at the same time in that 93, 96.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The con being that are people getting into drag to not so much as an art form or an expression of themselves, but because they see it as a way of being famous.
Yeah. Oh, there's definitely that. It's sort of, I think Drag Race has, it's given it accessibility and visibility to drag queens, but at the same time, that's a con in itself. I've always said that there are two entrances into the world of drag. One is you a performer, you've been performing for ages. You may have done like dance or speech and drama when you were younger. And then, as you get older and you come out, you find drag, and it's just a natural progression of the things you've been doing. Whereas some people, they might not be a performer, they might be an introvert, and they see drag and they're like, but someone like me sees drag as a performance. It's a full expression. I'm a blank canvas. I can play with my hair, my makeup, my costumes, the character I'm performing on stage, the songs I do. Whereas some other people, the second door they go through is they see drag and they see the attention that someone's getting, and that's what they're attracted to, not the performance, but the attention that it garners. And I think you can generally tell whether someone is a born performer doing it to entertain and express themselves versus doing it to get attention. Yeah.
And I think that also shows through in we were talking before about, when they go out in drag and they drink or do whatever, and you start to see elements of their true self coming through. It becomes a lot more obvious there as well. Go on the other extreme. I'll
making it sound like all drag queens are drunks. It's not true.
Not true, but the more you drink, the prettier they look.
Exactly.
Shout out to Miss Candy. Go on the other extreme. I remember back a friend of mine, Travis, or Tiffany Lampshade.
I love that name.
Wanted to throw for his birthday party a drag party, and everyone had to go in drag.
Yeah.
Male, female, straight, gay, everyone had to go in drag. And to his credit, everyone that went really got into it. It was a really hysterical party because everyone brought with them this alter ego that would not have existed in the party before. And, I challenge people out there, if you ever want to try that, do a drag party. It's hysterical.
Yeah.
But then when I talk about this with some people and some gay boys, there is this real, oh no, I just couldn't do that. And there's almost this internalized homophobia that comes up.
It's like dragophobia. Yeah.
Around something like, what will people think if I dress up in women's clothing?
Oh, some people are so anti, and it's the strangest people. It's like, you hear people, yes, drag race, oh my god, yes. Do drag. No. Nope.
What kind of extreme reactions have you had in regards to both yourself as a drag performer and from talking to people about drag itself?
I would say, sometimes it's the weirdest things. Sometimes you'll get people just chatting to you, they're admiring the outfit, and the next thing you know, there's a hand on the thigh. And I'm just like, no, I'm not doing this for that.
That's not my hand.
So where did that go? And, someone will be saying, oh, you look amazing in that outfit. Thank you. Oh, you look really sexy in that outfit. Okay. Thank you. And then, you know, you look really sexy out of that. Oh no. And they're sort of, which is kind of, I think they kind of fetishize it slightly.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's kind of like, you know, someone falling for, say, Jessica Rabbit.
Yeah.
It's not real. You know, it's this weird caricature of like femininity and hyperdrive, I guess. So that's always weird. I mean, I do know some drag queens who are more than happy to, you know, go and sleep with men in drag, because generally the type of guys that they can pull when they're in a dress, they would never be able to pull out of a dress. And for them, they don't care about the dress. You know, it's like,
That's true.
I'm getting with a hot guy.
Yeah.
Whoop-de-doo. And for me, I'm like, I've never done that. And I don't begrudge anyone that does it. It's just not me.
Drag does feel very much though like the archetype of the female grotesque. Why do you think it is that drag queens can get away with so much more in public that someone out of drag wouldn't be able to do?
I think because it's seen as an act. It's not really real. You know, it's like I liken it to going into a bar and jumping up on the bar and just dancing wildly to whatever song's on. If I did that in drag, everyone would be like, yes, queen, oh my God, that's amazing. She's hilarious. Look at her. If you did that as a guy, security would be on you.
Colin's drunk
down.
again. Get it.
Like, who is that? He's in it. Get them out. Get them out. But just going back to the extreme reactions, there can be some, you know, it's almost homophobia from some people, you know. The most interesting is when I've done like political rallies and things like, say, marching for marriage equality. You know, I've used drag as a megaphone or a billboard. While people are looking at it, I can deliver a message. And in doing that, and being pro whatever we're supporting, people come up to me and say, you know, I adore you, I respect you so much for standing up and just doing that. But then you can get in the same crowd people like you give gay people a bad name, and there's this complete anti, and I'm sort of fine with people doing that because I know that they're actually projecting their insecurities onto me. Yeah, and you get, again, like going back to the drag party, you get these boys who are just like, not doing it, you know, because there is a sort of a phobia, I think, of what people will think.
Absolutely. It's an internalized homophobia.
Yeah.
Of, you know, well, you know, I grew up believing girls wear dresses and boys wear that, and if I wear a dress, then I'm going to be seen as weak or, you know, too feminine or too camp, and what will people think of me? I'm not a real man anymore.
And that then spreads across to, like, dating and relationships when you work as a drag performer, because, you know, you time and time again, and people don't believe me when I tell them, but I can show you messages. You know, when you tell someone that you work as a drag performer, you get, like, no offense, but, you know, if I wanted to date a woman, I'd be straight. It's like, but I'm not a woman.
You're not a woman, exactly.
And the weird thing is, then people are, you know, say if I work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're looking at maybe 6 to 8 hours per shift, per sort of work day, I guess. So that could be, let's say, maybe 15 to 18 hours in drag over 3 nights. So people are judging your whole personality based on 15 to 18 hours of what you do for a job a week. And you even have people go, oh, so you do look like this, you know, 24/7. Oh, God, could you imagine it? Yeah. Seeing it, like, on the bus at 8 in the morning.
Did you say, do you know how much makeup costs?
Exactly, and how long it takes to put on. You know, yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I think, you know, one of RuPaul's famous lines is, you know, you're born naked and the rest is drag.
It is.
And really that's identifying the fact that, you know, we all grow up and we put on different roles and different outfits and attires that we feel reflect who we are.
Everything is a construct, you know, put on to, I guess, perform for, you know, people. And some people have a really complicated performance, and some people have a performance that isn't really even a performance.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Some people just like to dress up and skip around to girly music, while others like to be able to have some sort of artistic bent or leaning towards it. And
storytelling or pushing a message, political message or something.
Neither one is better than the other. No. Both are valid in their own right. But, it's important to remember that the Stonewall riots, a landmark moment in LGBT liberation, was started by drag queens.
By Marsha P. Johnson. She was a black drag queen, and she picked up through the first stone. Because they were sick and tired of being harassed by the police. Because the mob used to own most of the gay bars back in the 60s. And the police would sort of massage the mob to give them money, and they'd leave them alone. And not long after Judy Garland's funeral, everyone was pretty upset. And the police tried on, and that was not the time, honey. And a few of them just snapped, and riot went on for, I think, 3 days.
Why do you think it is, and this is, I guess, a side question, why do you think it is that gay men identify so much with cultural icons?
I think because it's the strength, These are these loud, proud women who are just going hell for leather and telling it like it is, and not caring what people think. Judy Garland, Liza Minnelli, Bette Midler, Cher, Shirley Bassey. None of them really give a shit about what men think, and they just get out there and do it. And it's that joie de vivre, I guess, that is then sort of empowering and inspiring, and people, we sort of, I just find that the larger than life sort of thing and the strength is what gets me. Which
performers inspired and influenced you the most?
Who
is Polly made up of?
Who is Polly made up of? Bette Midler, pre-Beaches, pretty much everything leading up to that. She is the ultimate entertainer for me. She sings, she does comedy, she acts, she can have you just pissing yourself in tears, and then 5 minutes later have you, thinking about your mother and crying.
Yeah.
Liza Minnelli, some of her earlier stuff when she was doing a lot of things with Bob Fosse.
Yes, so cabaret.
Yeah, this show, I like Helen Reddy as sort of, she's like my warm brandy, I guess. Just beautiful vocal performance. The look of Polly and kind of the character is all of those performers, plus Carol Burnett's portrayal of Miss Hannigan. That's the kind of, boozy kind of, she's slightly wrong, but she's not harmful, that kind of misunderstood, and again, like Witchy Poo from HR Puff and stuff, that misunderstood character, which is really interesting because you look at Puff, HR Puff and stuff, the movie, and there is a song that Mama Cass, is one of the witches, performs called Different, which is, different is hard, different is lonely, different is trouble for you only, but I'd rather be different than be the same. And that I remember watching that when I was like 5, and that really stuck with me. And watching the movie as an adult and noticing that half the witches are actually men in makeup, and they've got beards and everything. And you go, oh my God, I never noticed.
Far more camp than what people realise.
It is far more camp. I mean, look at the fact Puff and stuff looks like a giant hamburger, a talking hamburger, and he's supposed to be a dragon. And probably the other archetypal figure is Rosalind Russell's performance of Auntie Mame. And to a lesser degree, her portrayal of Mama Rose and Gypsy. It's just that everyone's fabulous but eternally single queer aunt. And it's kind of funny now because all the kids start calling me Auntie Polly. So Auntie May, Auntie Polly, yeah.
I find it fascinating though, because in some ways it's like you can watch these performances and see what elements of them that you find, mesmerizing and appealing and empowering, and then just channel that resource into who you are through the art of drag is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is kind of like channeling, it's like some of the performances I do, I don't even think I'm there for them. It's this lightning rod conduit and something else takes over. And people are like, that was amazing. I'm like, what was amazing? I mean, half the time I'm just, I'm dancing around in a costume, obviously I've made, and I'm lip syncing some words or dialogue or, lyrics that someone else has written and recorded. And I'm going, what are people enjoying about this?
So you and Brittany have something in common then.
The songs I do are interesting. But I'm sort of wondering, what is it that people are actually enjoying? And it's the energy.
Yeah.
And the license that I'm saying it's okay for you to just, let your hair out and have a good time. Yeah.
What about other drag performers? Who's out there that you admire?
They're all awful.
Especially you, Bianca Del Rio.
She's probably listening. A lot of my influences are other, drag queens from the 90s.
Yeah.
So people like Coco Peru, Lady Bunny, Vala Jean Merman, all for different reasons. Sort of some of them it's the look, some of it's the comedy or the fashion. I love Bianca Del Rio. I mean, I've been lucky enough to open for her twice, and the time spent one-on-one in the dressing room with her is just like, it was like cocaine. She is so genuinely nice and down to earth, and actually
interested in what you have to say. Yeah, I've experienced that as well.
Yeah, she's like she's definitely a three-dimensional, maybe fourth-dimensional being, and then
that depends how much fireball she's had at the time.
So when she goes out on stage and just, rips into people, that it is just comedy.
But I think also that's why when she was on that season of RuPaul's Drag Race, she became everyone's favourite, because in amongst all of that trash comedy that she's famous for, there were these moments of absolute, pure, genuine empathy.
Absolutely.
Where she would stop and help someone else just for the sake of doing it, like because she actually cared.
Yeah.
And I think that's why everyone just grew to love Bianca so much. I still think Bianca is possibly my favourite winner.
She is mine, RuPaul definitely.
Ever, because I felt that she genuinely deserved that.
Yeah. And when you look what she's done with it, she's just taken it and run. She's constantly travelling the world, in demand. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I just look at that in so much respect.
If anyone was wanting to try drag for the first time,
don't do it.
I was about to say, what motherly advice would you give to them?
So comfortable shoes,
right?
Because you might be in it for a while.
That does not mean Nikes, folks.
A go-go boot is actually quite, like a flat on the front and maybe like a 3-inch block heel. And a boot is good because it gives you more support. Don't wear a long wig, because it'll just get in your face. So it needs to be like an updo or like a bob or a beehive. That's always quite good. And just book a makeup artist. Just like offer them, like maybe get a couple of friends and go like, we'll offer you this much for doing 3 faces or whatever. And just go out and have fun. Really, that's the main thing. Don't get too boozy, because and like I said, good pair of shoes, because shoes can make or break a night. The last thing you want to do is have to go home early because your feet hurt.
Yes. And I suppose when you're saying about don't get too boozy, like no one likes a messy drag queen, because we never see any of those, do we?
No, never. Never.
If people want to come and see Polly, you've got the 20th anniversary show coming up.
That is coming up. It is on as part of the Melbourne Fringe Festival. So I think it's melbournefringe.com.
We'll make sure we place the links up on our website for people who might want to purchase tickets.
That'd be great. Yep. And so I'm doing a best of. So it's my top 12 favorite songs that I've chosen for me. Mm-hmm. Normally I choose songs for the audience and what they're going to get out of. But for this one, I'm going to do the ones that I like. And in between the songs, I just have sort of random, it's pre-filmed interview, discussions of my thoughts on things. Yes, yeah. Musings and ramblings over the past 20 years.
Like an evening with Polly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if people want to come and see you and in fact, that's one thing we haven't really discussed yet. And I guess just jumping into that quickly, thoughts on the future of drag, where it's going.
God, well, hopefully we'll have holographic makeup so we can just sort of press a few buttons and, and makeup's done like that.
Yeah, because I fear that we're losing a lot of our gay culture with venues seemingly shutting down left, right and centre.
I think as it goes on, it's getting more and more accepted by the general community. But in that, are we losing what makes us special? Yeah. Because, it's not so, I guess, ghettoised anymore. I mean, you look at when I moved to Melbourne 10 years ago, we had 13 or 14 gay venues and now there's sort of 4 or 5. Mm. Was that my fault? But I guess people aren't necessarily feeling that just because they're gay, they have to go. They're only limited to go to a gay bar. They can go anywhere now.
And that seems to be the general consensus with a lot of the younger generations, that it is more about integration, which is really what the gay movement has been fighting for all along. So there's no reason why we should complain.
And then on that, it's like, why don't we have marriage equality yet? Yeah. Like, everyone wants it. The only thing that only people marriage equality affects are people of the same sex who want to get married. Mm. And yet people are anti that, which just seems ridiculous to me. It's kind of like, we should have had it by now. And it's something that's really dear to my heart. And it's just kind of frustrating. I remember going to one of the first marches 10 years ago, and we're still marching, which I just think is a joke. Yeah. It's something that should have happened. Australia needs to get with the times.
Australia needs to get with New Zealand.
Well, that's it. I mean, there are pros and cons to moving from New Zealand to Australia. Obviously there's more work. Like I'm working 3 or 4 nights a week here, on a good week, whereas in New Zealand it'd be maybe 1 or 2. But yeah, we had civil unions, I think about 14 years ago. And then a couple of years ago, they just decided to just pull finger and, marriage equality was brought up in Parliament. It got voted for by an overwhelming majority. Mm. And when it was announced that it passed, the whole of Parliament burst into song.
It was incredible. It was very moving.
Yeah.
Very moving.
And yet Australia's like, well, we need to discuss whether or not we should have, people of the same sex should get the same rights. I mean, they pay the same tax, but we don't really know whether they should have the same.
And unfortunately, that comes down to the fact we have an ultra-conservative government in place who shouldn't be ultra-conservative. Fortunately, we're seeing that split. But until we have a government that really is prepared to be a little bit more progressive.
I think they're afraid of losing voter base. They don't want to offend the Christian voter base. And that, I think, is just, is the gist of it. And it's just so silly because, and especially with this plebiscite, the last time they had a plebiscite was like 100 years ago, I think. And at the gist of it, on a basic level, we vote for politicians to represent our views in Parliament. So they're effectively trying to pass the buck. It's like, no, do your job, have a vote on it, and just get the thing passed so we can all move on.
And now we're seeing the opposite, where we have people like Margaret Court saying that she's being bullied and persecuted by the gay community because of her views. And it's like, well...
I think when you're denying basic human rights to a subset of the population, then, you know, you're not necessarily entitled to your opinion. You're actually a bigot.
Yeah.
And I'm not calling anyone that. That is just a simple fact. You are a bigot. That's how it is. Yeah, Margaret Court. And you know, there's I was talking on Sunday about, you know, that, and should we rename Margaret Court Arena? Some people think we should call it Tina Arena.
Tina Arena.
I think you could just change the first name to Tennis. Tennis Court Arena.
It's actually not a very big court, so perhaps it should be called the Tiny Tina Arena.
But I did notice that apparently they've changed the colouring of the sign to rainbow.
Well,
so it's quite fabulous.
Well played there. Well played. If people wish to come and see you during the week, where can they find you at the moment?
Well, so Monday to Thursday, you can catch me at sorry, you mean professional shows? Sorry, I am on a roster on Fridays to perform at the 86, which is 185 Smith Street. We do a cabaret show there, 9:30 and 10:30. It's called Fellas in Frocks. So there are normally 2 fellas in frocks on a rotating basis, and that's a really fun show. It's more of a sit-down cocktails and cabaret show, and lots of talk spots and games and silliness. It's a lot of fun. Saturday nights, I'm normally hosting at Puff Duff, which is on Chapel Street, just opposite KFC. And so we open at 10:30 and go right through till the wee hours of the morning. And then Sunday, I'm part of the DT's Sunday sessions lineup. So the doors open at 2:00, free sausage sizzle at 5, and then I do 5 shows from 6 p.m.
How are you feeling by the time you get to Sunday afternoon?
Good. I really like Sunday. It's really casual and fun, and if you like old school drag and campery, then you know that's what we do there. Like none of the Britney Spears stuff.
It does remind me, though, of when DTs used to be on Commercial Road and Candy would rock up in the afternoon, having not slept for the entire weekend. They would occasionally have to prop a stool up on the bar and then prop her on the stool in order to get the show happening.
Like, I'm not confirming or denying, but I may have done it a few times.
Polly, thank you so much for your time today and for allowing us an insight into the world of drag, which others may not have had the opportunity to really explore.
Well, thank you for having me. And if you want to check me out, I'm on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Miss Polly Filla, POLLYFILLA.
Go and press the like button.
Do it.
For everyone else, thank you for listening. And we look forward to catching up with you in the next fortnight with the next episode. Till then, take care.